Hello and welcome back to another part of Design Your Own Level tutorial. In this video, what we will be doing is creating these basic curtains using Blender physics. So essentially what I'll be doing is just using a flat plane and then running some Blender physics to create these folds and everything into it. And then we'll export it to Unreal Engine 4. Now this is our basic test run of it. Later on in the next video I will show you how to do a little bit more complex or just something that looks a little bit more in line with our level. As you can see, the curtains are just like hanging off the ground. There's nothing really special about them. Alright, so if that's it, let's just get started. Alright, so essentially what we want to do is we want to create the curtains as in these curtains inside of our level, similar to Mirror's Edge. Now, these are fairly simple. They don't have any rails that they attach to. It's just a solid model. They don't actually move. I do believe later in the game this window over here opens and then the curtains do actually move a little bit as the wind is blowing against them. We can try and make something like that later on, but for now that's not required. So we're just going to create a solid curtain as this one over here using physics simulation. So what I'm going to do is just jump over into Blender. Now if you followed along with this tutorial, know that these are our walls over here. This wall and this one over here is this wall and this one over here. So I just duplicated them and stacked them up to make everything look a little bit taller. So this will give us a nice basis to work off of to get our sizes right. So from here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit Shift C to center my view, and I'm going to just deselect everything and hit Shift A and add a plane. Jump into the side view, wireframe mode, and then R to rotate, and I'm going to rotate it by 90 degrees. You just type in 90. And I'm going to move it up so it's in line with that one, and then I'm just going to scale it up 2 units. Well, not scale it up, I'm just going to grab and move it up 2 units. So essentially if we look at it, it should be just slightly over the wall over there. So that should be fine. We can always scale it inside of Unreal if we really want to. This was just to give us like a basis of our size. And I think I want to actually make it slightly wide. So I'm just going to grab this and I'm going to, let's say, move it about, let's make it an even number, 8 units wide and 4 units tall. But now I want to be able to subdivide this evenly. What I mean with evenly is I want every single grid space that I can see here. As you can see, here's one, here's one, here's one. I want that to evenly distribute across my model. But if I hit W and subdivide, you'll see that that isn't going to exactly happen like that. No. As you can see, eventually we do get to a point where it doesn't work. We can subdivide and then maybe add some cuts, but what I'm going to do just from the beginning is add loop cuts by hitting Ctrl R, and I'm going to roll the mouse wheel until I get in line with what I want. So you see, there we go. And then the same with this side over here. And there we go. So now what I'm just going to do, I'm just going to hide my walls here and then just go back to these. And if you look at it, now we got a nice grid spacing between them. So if we subdivide, they should subdivide into even cubes, which is nice. Not cubes, squares. So from here, I think I'm only going to subdivide twice. I don't need more detail than that. And then I'm going to hit Alt or push Alt and right click just to select this top piece over here. You can always hold Control and left mouse drag and select them all like one, but it's easier just to do that. Then I'm going to click the select option here and I'm going to hit checker deselect. Now I don't essentially want every single, every second. Well, maybe we should do it like that. It does look okay. If you want your curtain to be distributed evenly, think of it like this. It's like this is every single hook that the curtain is hung on its rail. So if you want to change it a little bit, you can say that it selects every 3rd unit, or you can skip a few, or just offset it if you want, but for now I think this should be fine, and we're going to try it with this. I normally would just select every third one, but I think this should be fine. Then I'm just going to go into the data plane here for my model, and under vertex groups I'm just going to hit plus and click assign. Now essentially what that does is, if I have nothing selected, I can just hit select here on my vertex groups, and it will select all these vertices that I had before. Or if I have everything selected, I can hit select or deselect, and then it will deselect the ones that I didn't want. So that should be make it a little bit easier for us for doing our animation or our simulation. And then under the shape key, right underneath vertex groups, I'm going to add 2 shape keys. Now shape key basically is going to be a modification to the model's vertices based on key input over here. Now the basis is how your model looks at its standard, and key 1 will be like the first changes that we make. So I'm going to set this to a value of 1, and then if I go into edit mode and I select my vertex group, and what I want to do is just quickly I want to select the left one over here, and then I'm going to hit Shift S and then cursor to select it, so my 3D cursor is there. And then here by pivot point, I'm going to change that to 3D cursor, which means any scaling or any modifications I will do will be based on where the 3D cursor is. So let's just select our vertex group again and then hit S to scale. And you can see everything comes along with. I'm going to do it somewhere to around about, let's do it there. And now if I go into object mode and I change this key value back to 0, you can see that there we go. That is what the shape key does. It moves these vertices, but now you'll see that everything in between doesn't move, but that is something that we're going to approach with our physics simulation. But while we're at it, what I quickly want to do is, I think that, let's just see, do a value of 1, let's select the basis shape key. I first want to actually create UV coordinates for this before we carry on to further, and it becomes a little bit more difficult. So what I'm going to do from here is I'm just going to split my view. You don't need to split your view. I just like to do it to get an idea. Okay, that's my basic model. So I'm just going to select something that's blank, and then I'm just going to select everything in my model, hit U to unwrap, but I'm going to use the project from view with bounds. Now if you do that, you'll see what it does. It fits everything like this into the square over here. If I just hit project from view, you'll see that it does that. So essentially what we can do is we can create a model that is in resolution, or a texture in resolution that is larger on its side than what it is on the top over here. Let's say a texture with a resolution of 2048 by 1024, so that we can actually get like even distribution. So for now, what I'm just going to do is project from view with bounds. And later on when we do textures, we can actually like just apply a proper texture, but it is a curtain. It's not really going to have anything specific, so I'm not going to worry about that too much. This is just something I want to do before we actually get started with our simulation. Okay, so from here, we've done everything. We've created our shape key. That's what our shape key looks like. I'm just going to set its value to 0. Now I'm going to do a cloth simulation. So here under simulation, just click cloth. Silk is going to be our preset. And then we're going to use pinning. And I'm going to set the group that we created, this group over here, the vertex group, as our pinning. And its rest shape key is going to be the basis. And then I'm going to go to cloth simulation or cloth collision. I'm going to set the basic quality to 1. And the self collision quality I'm going to set up to 2. You can set it a little bit higher if you want, but that's not required. Then I'm just going to add my timeline all the way back to 1. Jump over to my data and I'm going to hit Alt A and the simulation starts. Now with the key 1 selected, you'll see that if we start moving things, it actually starts with the cloth simulation. But as we hit the end of the timeline, you'll see that it completely messes up. So what I'm going to do from here to prevent that is, I think I have my frame rate set to 25. That should actually be 30 if you want to use make animation for Unreal. I'm not going to worry about that too much, but yeah, let's set it to 30. It's not really going to matter much now. So let's go here. As you can see, our shape key, our value is set to 0 and our start is at 1. So under the value here, you're just going to hit I and that will add a keyframe. As you can see there, it added a keyframe for it. So now let's say that we want the curtain to close within 4 seconds. So because our frame rate is set to 30, that should be 4 times 30, it should be 120. So we're just going to go to 120, or you could type it in over here. Then I'm going to set the shape key value to 1 and hit I again. So now it should actually do something like that. But I'm moving it a bit too fast, so let's actually just redo a physics simulation. So hit Alt A. So it gets to that point. And if I'm happy, I'm just going to hit pause before it hits to the end of the timeline. And that looks pretty good. Let's just do that. As I said, we could have skipped like every second pinning because this actually just looks a little bit too clean. Let's just enable smooth shading to see what that looks like. So that is how we've actually managed to do our cloth simulation now. So now a few things that we can do, because you can see in the mirror's edge video, the cloth actually drags on the floor a bit, or we can put an object in between. For now, this is a little bit, this is all that we really require, but I will just like touch up on it a little bit more. So let's say that we can add another object over here. Let's say for instance over here, and the entire curtain moves over and then it will kind of like drag over that object, or we can create a floor and the curtain will be a little bit longer, so it will like drop down onto the floor and then there's also just drag along. That should give it a little bit more realism, because this is essentially just cloth hanging in the air. But for what we are doing, this is more than sufficient. So now I just want this to look a little bit smoother, so I'm just going to go over to my modifiers tab and add a subdivision surface. That looks pretty good. We can actually go a little bit higher. We just want something that looks very smooth. We can always bake this into a normal map if we want to, but for now I think I'm pretty happy with the way that that looks. And as this is, before you touch anything, before you play with your timeline, I'm just going to export it straight into Unreal Engine 4 and then see what it looks like. Now also note, because we did the UVs and we subdivided, if you actually go to your UVs over here, this is going to edit mode. I don't think it's going to allow me, but it will subdivide your UV, so you don't really need to worry about it. See there, I kind of messed up a little bit, so I'm just going to redo my animation. That looks a lot weirder with the additional subdivision surfaces. I'm just going to start it off, let it finish, push pause, there we go. And then I'm going to subdivide again and not be distracted, add the levels to 2. And then from here, file, export as FBX. Now remember, I had my object selected, so I'm just going to click selected objects. Geometries, I'm going to change smoothing group to edge detect. I think I don't need to change anything else because it's just a basic model. I'm just going to disable leaf bone. I don't want to export animation, so I'm just going to here at the bottom to say mesh, and that's it. And I'm going to call this my curtain default. Let's call it curtain default, export, jump over to Unreal. And just to do a quick test import, click all stuff. I think I have it over here. And let's just say I called it default curtain, or curtain default. There we go. Open that. Just click import. Remember, I'm just testing this to see what it looks like. So there we go, and that looks pretty good. It is a little bit high on the triangle count, but as I said, you can use a low resolution model, and then maybe we can try and bake normal maps onto it later on. But for now, this actually looks pretty good. So what I'm just going to do is I'm just going to drag this into the world. I kind of have its reverse here at the current moment. So what I'm going to do is just rotate it by 180 degrees. And then move it in. Let's say, for instance, we're going to delete this part and this part. And then I'm going to duplicate it by holding Alt and then rotate that one over there by 90 degrees. I don't want it to go through there, so I'm just going to move it a little bit forward. So now we kind of got something that we want. I'm not going to mess around with the materials too much at the current moment. Let's just say that we just want to see kind of what it will look like. So I'm just going to apply the carpet material to it, just kind of give it a cloth-like material. That actually looks terrible because the carpet material has normal maps on it. So anything generally we can actually apply to it. That looks very strange because it gives like a shine through on it. So for instance, what we're going to do, and I just want to call this actually like the end. That actually looks pretty nice. Like it's a little bit weird, but I want to call this the end to this video. What we'll do in the next one is we'll just quickly clean up the add a material. I will touch on a little bit on how we can maybe make things look a little bit more interesting. As I said to you, this just looks like this curtain is hanging in the air. It's never touched the floor or anything like that. So we can add some details onto it like that. So for now, this is the end of this video. I hope you guys like what you saw. If you did, leave a like. If you didn't, you can leave a dislike. Please subscribe to the channel. I thank you all very much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye bye.